Welcome to Cooking Like Crawley, where the fun never stops. I'm Chef Liam Crawley, and this is quick 30-minute meals. Now today I'm going to go through an absolutely beautiful dish that I love to cook at home, and that is this lovely, fresh and simple prawn curry. Now, this morning I've gone and collected some beautiful tiger prawns from the Sydney fish market, and I've got an array of beautiful fresh produce from my best mate Moa MD Fresh here in Sydney. Now, I've got some cracking spices, and this is so simple that you can make in 30 minutes at home. So, let's get started, shall we? I've popped a pot of water on. I'm going to cook a little bit of rice whilst we're going through the dish. I'm going to bring our pot up to the boil, and then we can get started. Now to get started, before we pop our rice in, one thing that we want to remember is to always wash our rice. Now if we're making a risotto like using a burrito rice, we really don't need to, because we want it that little bit more starchy so it sticks and, you know, brings your sauce together and everything's lovely. But with a jasmine rice or a basmati, you want to rinse your rice first until it's nice and clear in the dish, and then it's ready to be cooked. So I've given my rice a really good rinse and my water's come up to the boil. So we just want to pour it into our pot, get it all in there, and then we're just going to give it a stir so it doesn't catch on the bottom. Now we're going to give that about 6 to 8 minutes, and the rice will be absolutely perfect for this curry, and we can set it aside for later. So, next step of this beautiful dish, we've got some fresh spices in my pestle. Now, I've thrown in there a couple of teaspoons of fennel seed, and I've also put in a teaspoon of black pepper. Now we're going to slowly cook these spices in the pan so they're not raw and you don't get that raw flavour through your curry. So the curry cooks faster and it's delicious. So we just want to grind up the peppercorns, grind up the fennel seed until we've got a really rough grind of spices. So we're just going to press all these up. Now to that mix, I'm then going to add just a few cardamom pods. I'm going to throw in about 6 cardamom pods, and we don't want to crush them completely. We just want to give them a light bruising, just so once we start cooking that flavour comes out of the pod. So we've got a nice grind here, and I've also got a cinnamon quill. So next step, we can get our pan on, and we're not going to do it on a too high heat because we really don't want to burn our spices. So we're just going to bring it up to temperature, and then I'm going to explain what to do next. So I've got some lovely copper mistake olive oil here. You can use any sort of oil, vegetable oil, rice bran oil, it's really up to your home, but this is what I've got in my kitchen today. So we're just going to add about 1/4 cup of oil. Olive oil also gives things a really nice taste, and it's really healthy for you as well. So our pan's starting to come up to heat, and we just want to add this cinnamon quill. We're going to throw that in there, and that's just going to start getting flavour. And this dish is about creating layers of flavour until it's ready. So our spice mix that we've just pestled up, we can pop in there, and it's ready to go. So we're just going to let those spices just start toasting away in the pan, and then we're going to add our next lot of spice. Next up, we've also got, which we're going to be adding into this today, some fish sauce, we've got some tamarind puree, and we've also got coconut milk. We've got some tomatoes, and we've got some coriander here. So the next part of this dish, whilst the spices are toasting away, let's just get them spread out in the pan, toasting nicely. I've got some brown onion. So we just want to chop 1 brown onion, and we just want to slice it. It doesn't have to be too thick, just enough so it cooks nice and quickly in this 30-minute dish. So we've got half there, we're going to go one more half. And remember guys, cooking at home is all about having fun in the kitchen. If you're not having fun when you're cooking, there's a problem. The smells, the flavours, the ingredients, there's nothing better than cooking a dish like this at home. So our spices are just starting to toast. I can really start to smell cardamom, the cinnamon, the fennel and the pepper. And we can add the rest of our spice. Now, I've got some turmeric powder, I've got some ground coriander, and I've got some chili powder. Now, that's just gonna go in. We've also got a bit of turmeric as well. So, just gonna spread those out, get them toasting in the oil as well, and that's gonna be really, really yum. I've also got here some ginger. I've got a 2cm knob of ginger. We're just gonna chop it up roughly. It doesn't need to be too fine because ginger is quite strong and the flavour is going to give it some real freshness and some real punch. Then we've got some garlic. So I've got 3 garlic cloves here, which again, nice and rough. Now we just want to make sure our spices aren't burning. It smells absolutely gorgeous. You can smell it already and it is sexy. So the next thing we want to add, we've got our onions, we've got our garlic and ginger, is coriander root. Now we're going to use some fresh coriander at the end, which is going to give it a beautiful freshness to the curry. But we also have the roots. Now these stems hold so much flavour which it carries when it's growing up to the leaves, and that's why it's such a potent herb. So we want to chop our coriander stalks. This one we want to do nice and fine, curling our fingers up as we go so we don't have any kitchen injuries. And that's going to go straight in to this gorgeous curry mix. Oh, I hear it sizzle. Love it. Alright. So, coriander. And we're just going to stir that through our herbs. I've also got some curry leaves here. Now, these are quite little leaves. If they're big leaves, you can use about 15, but these are quite small, so I'm just going to add a couple of extras into the sauce, and that's going to give it a really nice taste as well. Those curry leaves, beautiful. I love the smell of the curry leaf. So our curry leaves are in there, we've got our spices in there, we've got our cinnamon in there. We're just going to toast those leaves, and we're building these flavours in the pan. Now next, we want to add our onion, our garlic and our ginger. So we're going to get that in there. Now we don't want to cook our onions too far. We don't want them really, really soft. We just want them just starting to soften. A bit of crunch still left in them. It's exactly how we want them. So our onions are cooking nicely, and the last ingredient to go in and start cooking is a bit of green chilli. So I've just seeded the chilies, topped and tailed, and we can just chop these nice and thin and get these into the mix as well. It's going to spice it up a little bit and give it that fresh spice that we're looking for, not that dried spice that we added before. So we're just going to chop our chilies nice and fine. I've got 1.5 here. I think that'll be enough, otherwise it's just going to get too spicy, and we're not cooking curry like a vindaloo where it's super, super spicy, and we're going to lose all those gorgeous flavours of the coriander, tomatoes, the onions, those lovely spices, but also these immaculate prawns that we've bought. So we've got our chili already chopped, and I'm just going to check our rice. I think our rice has only got about a minute left and we can drain it. So our onions are starting to soften up nicely. Our chili is in the pan and we can move on. So next up in this beautiful dish, we want to add some tomatoes. But before we do that, we want to finish building these layers of flavour in the pan. So I've got some fish sauce. We're going to add 1.5 tablespoons of fish sauce, which will continue to help soften these onions up. I've also got some tamarind puree, and I'm going to add 1.5 tablespoons of tamarind puree as well. There we go. And now we can bring all of these together. Now with this dish at home, if you've got nice white benches, be careful because we are using turmeric, and turmeric stains, so you'll end up with a bench covered in turmeric and it's very hard to get out. So we've got our sauce cooking away nicely, our paste, our onions, and we're going to drain this rice. Okay, so now our rice is draining so quick. We've hardly spent any time cooking this beautiful dish so far. It really goes to show how easy it is to cook beautiful food at home and quickly. So our next ingredient, we want to add some chopped tomato. So I've already chopped some here, but I'm just going to show you. We're just going to cut it down the center and then cut it back into 4 and then cut it into 3. Don't want the tomato too fine. You still, as it breaks down, you want to still have that texture of the tomato in the sauce. So I've chopped 4 of them up. And we're just going to let them cook nice and gently with these wonderful herbs and spices. So we just want to get those onions through it, the ginger, the garlic, those beautiful curry leaves. And that's looking really, really good. Now, I've also got a few green beans. Now, green beans in a curry really give it some crunch, but also the bean takes on a beautiful flavour of this curry as it's cooking, and it takes on all the flavours of these wonderful prawns as well. So we're just going to get them started in the pan with those spices going into them, and we're almost there. So the next thing that we want to do is prepare our prawns. Now I've prepared some prawns today and I've prepared about 12. Now this is going to feed 3 to 4 people depending on how many prawns you like to eat, but these are wonderful, beautiful, big prawns, wild tigers from the Sydney Fish Market. So the nicest way to peel them is to leave the heads on, leave the tails on, because that's flavour. But also with our prawn shells, if we save them, you can make a beautiful bisque with them, which is also beautiful. And I know some great chefs which have some beautiful recipes out there to make an absolutely gorgeous bisque. Simple, easy, and fresh. So I've peeled the prawn from the head down to the tail. Now with this prawn, we want to get the vein out of it. So slice it open with my knife, and we're just going to pull that vein out of it. So the vein's out of the prawn, and those prawns are ready to pop straight into the sauce. Now when cooking a beautiful curry like this, the smell coming out of it so far is absolute magic. We want to pop the prawns in, but we don't want to put them in too early. We want to just bathe them in the curry sauce once we've got it up to the boil and it's just about ready, so we retain some of that juiciness from the prawn. We don't want to overcook them. We just want to, these are nice sashimi grade prawns, so we want them just cooked. Not raw, but just cooked. Now, because this is getting there now, our tomatoes are starting to change colour and starting to get soft. Our beans, all of those flavours in there. I've got 600 mils of coconut milk. And we're just going to add that to this gorgeous curry. And that's really, really gonna give it some taste now and bring all of those layers of flavour into that coconut milk, and we have one delicious dinner. Now we want to incorporate our curry paste that we've made, those tomatoes, beans, onions. We just want to incorporate it into the coconut milk so all those flavours are well distributed through this beautiful sauce. Now I haven't seasoned this sauce yet. Now I tend to season it later in the cooking process once all those flavours are developed. It could do with a little bit of salt, but we've added some salt with the fish sauce. So we don't need to add a lot of salt to it. So I'm only going to add a very small pinch of salt because it's a sweet curry. So we don't want to make it salty when it's nice and sweet. So the one thing that we haven't done yet, now it's starting to come up to the boil, is taste it. We always want to taste our food when we're cooking it at different stages of the cooking process as well, because you might want to add a little bit more of something, or you might want to change the flavour altogether. So let's give it a whirl. Yum, that is delicious. The one thing we love doing in the kitchen is tasting food and going, and having that flavour just build in your mouth and you go, wow, that's delicious. And everybody else is going to tell you how good it is once they eat it. So it's coming together really nicely. We just want the tomato to break down now, those onions to soften. It's coming up to the boil, so it's going to start thickening and reducing, and we can add these gorgeous prawns, and we're just about ready to serve. Now I've got some beautiful fresh coriander here. We're just going to chop some of this coriander up, and we're going to add this back through once the prawns are almost done, which is going to impart even more, another level of freshness into this curry. So just going to roughly chop it. It doesn't need to be too fine. Nice and rustic. Just like that. And that can go back through this curry when it's almost finished. We've also got some more leaves here that we can use for garnish on the plate. That's what I always say, garnish. We eat with our eyes. You want sexy food in the kitchen. You want sexy food on the table. So this is really starting to get there now. I can still taste a little bit, it's a little bit too fresh still. The tomatoes are just a little bit tart. We want to get those sugars out of it. But one thing that I am going to add is half a teaspoon of sugar in a minute, and that will give it another level of sweetness that we're really looking for with this dish. So last but not least, we want to get a little bit of sugar into our curry. I've got a bit of brown sugar here. You can use white sugar, and we're just going to pop in about a teaspoon's worth. A little bit more for good luck. Just a smidgen. So we've chopped our brown sugar in there. Now we want to just get that sugar into the curry. It smells so good. And I'm really happy where this curry is. So now it's time to just bathe these beautiful prawns in this sauce. We just want to let them just gently cook. So we've got these beautiful prawns in the sauce, and we're just going to lower them in there nice and gently. We don't want the heads falling off. Just want to get them under that sauce and just get them cooking. Now you can see that we've put them in last, right at the end. Those heads are going to give it even more flavour. The prawns are going to taste absolutely wild. We're going to give them about a minute and a half, and then I'm going to throw in this fresh coriander, which is just going to finish it off perfectly. So we've given our prawns a minute and a half in this gorgeous sauce, and we're just going to add this fresh coriander to the mix, just like so. Gorgeous. Coriander would have to be one of my favourite herbs. Just that fresh smell plus the flavour it gives off in a wonderful sauce like this. Really, really gorgeous. So it's cooking away really, really nicely. Let's just give it one last taste after putting the sugar in it. Those tomatoes, the onions have sweetened up. This is absolutely sexual. Love it. So we're just going to make sure these prawns are sitting under the sauce, that all of it's cooking nicely. Just get that coriander down in between those prawns. And in a couple of minutes, dinner is done. Now, over here, because I love presentation, I'll pop some rice into a little dish and just pressing it into the bowl, just like so, and that will create the bed that we're going to put this beautiful curry on when we dish it up. So this magical prawn curry is just about there. These prawns are just starting to change colour now. The smell coming out of this pan is absolutely sensational, and we haven't made a massive mess. We've only got a couple of bowls, we've got one pan, all done in the one spot. Now, if you don't have a mortar and pestle at home, you can buy ground spices, but grinding them yourself just gives it that little bit more punch when you're making a gorgeous curry at home. So there we have it, guys. We've got this beautiful prawn curry in 30 minutes. Doesn't get any better than that. Now, this cinnamon is really starting to shine now, and this curry is ready. These prawns, they're soft, they're just cooked, they're juicy. I cannot wait to tuck into a bowl of this. Now, we're just gonna turn off our cooker, so it stops the cooking process, and we've got our rice, and we just wanna fold our rice out just like that into the bowl. So we have our rice. Now we can dish this gorgeous curry up. The main event. Wow. Absolute luxury having an array of beautiful fresh seafood in this country. Now, you don't have to cook it with prawns. You can cook it with a nice firm white flesh fish or something nice and steaky, meaty. You could use a barramundi, you could use kingfish, you could use salmon. It's really up to you what you want to use in the kitchen when cooking this curry, but a gorgeous fresh wild prawn like this does not get any better. So let's dish these gorgeous babies up. They are absolutely gorgeous. We're going to throw two on top. Let's make it three. And let's get some of this gorgeous sauce into the bowl. We've got our beans, beautifully cooked. And this stunning sauce. Now we're just going to clean our plate up. The turmeric really gets everywhere and leaves yellow everywhere. So just going to mop up our bowl, and we're just going to give it some nice fresh coriander leaves on top just to finish it off. Here we go, lovely fresh leaves. Now take a look at this, folks. What an absolute work of art. Sensational and cooked in 30 minutes. We've just got to get into some of this. Delicious. Now, If you loved what you see today, hop on YouTube, go to Cook It Like Crawley, go to quick 30-minute meals playlist, subscribe, and go to our wonderful prawn curry and learn to cook like Crawley too. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you again soon.